Thanks for being in here. My name's Martin Connor. I work with Brains in the marketing department, but we're going to get started on this panel about the potential of heat reuse for Bitcoin mining. So everyone here knows Tyler, but Alan and Colin, if you guys could introduce yourselves, give a brief overview of what your companies are, what you do, that'd be great.
My name is Alan Carlson. I'm a business developer for HeatCore. We specialize in hydro-cooled mining systems.
I'm Colin Sullivan. I'm the CEO of Mint Green. We're sort of a pioneer in the heat recovery space for ASIC mining. Let's get into it.
All right, and as we get going here, in the bottom left corner of this TV, poll.denver.space, you could go there, and then you could use hashtag potential, and then you'll be able to ask questions throughout that. At the end, we will go through and discuss them. So I figured we could start on something fun. Just everyone here, what was the last thing you used heat for?
Shower this morning.
Likewise.
You mean just general heating?
Anything?
Yeah, it's absolutely everywhere. This room.
All right, and then also just to, obviously this is about the potential of heat reuse, but it's important to know where we currently are. So you guys just want to talk about what the current market share of that 175 terawatts of Bitcoin mining, what percentage would you estimate is doing hash rate heating at the moment?
Exceedingly small. It's exceedingly small at this point. There's, in Canada alone, where I'm from, there's 20 times the amount of energy used in district heating, which is centralized heating systems, than there is in the entire Bitcoin network. So there is a unique ability for actually heating in Bitcoin to outstrip regular mining over a long enough period of time. But there's a lot of there's a knowledge gap certainly with the customer on that. But it's one of these things that will be very gradually, then suddenly, I believe.
I would estimate probably under a quarter still. Colin?
What's that?
What's your name again?
My name is Colin, yes.
Colin, yes. Like he stated, I think there's a lot of room and potential for it to keep growing as it's it's multifaceted, and not only are you mining Bitcoin, but you are using heating, which is so crucial in everyday life for everything.
Because you guys are both building systems specifically for heat reuse, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the impetus of the entire business, is for heat recovery products.
Yeah, could you just give some examples then of what you have been seeing? Obviously, Tyler touched on it earlier, but maybe some other cooler examples right now of what's going on would be a good way to get started too.
Cool is tough to say because, the cool aspect is the Bitcoin mining, but what you certainly discover is you're actually in the heating industry, which is slightly less exciting. I mean, it's important, but these are the people you need to be communicating to. I love that I'm here. I need to be here, but most of my customers aren't going to be here, and most of my customers have no idea what we're doing. I had an opportunity to speak at the International District Energy Conference last summer in Orlando. The people outside the space are getting savvy enough just to be dangerous. What are you going to do after all the Bitcoin's mined? They have these types of questions, which I thought was great. And of course, the answer is transaction fees are going to carry that, right? Maybe
Hope
not.
so.
I don't know. Okay. But I'm going to name names here because I think this particular deal, I don't think it has any legs. But we had an interesting conversation with the board of the YMCA. They have 3,000 locations throughout the United States. Many of them have pools. About a third of them I assess to be used to be of a scale for our flagship product, the digital boiler. If that deal went through, with those 1,000 locations at 400 kilowatts, they would have had something like 24 exahash. So it would have been like the number 5 miner in the world, like that. That's the YMCA.
That's the craziest thing people don't realize about heat reuse.
Exactly. It's like if Hilton gets involved, if any of these chains that have like heat, and it becomes one of these like business shifts where, you know, at some point McDonald's realized it wasn't flipping burgers and it was dealing with real estate. It's like we don't really heat pools and have a rec center. We're actually like a Bitcoin making company. We're a Bitcoin mining company. And like, even though I've been doing this for a while and I've understood this, it was just that one potential customer or something like, I was just like, the biggest miners are not going to be miners on a go forward basis. I just don't see these 100 megawatt facilities driving the industry in the next decade. It's going to be what's going on here. And, you know, this is, we are truly early, but we bring credibility to each other. The more that the end users can have success with the types of things we're doing, the more they will go, oh, I want to do what those guys are doing, and it kind of builds on itself a bit. It's very hard to educate the client completely those 10,000 hours you spent on Bitcoin to get them there, because then they start digging, they start drilling down. It's like, it's really hard to do that. So you almost have to be an expert in market theory as well, to try to explain to them, well, this is going to actually break even. This is how it's going to look, and model that for them. So there's a lot of challenges unless you find a real gunslinger to sell these. But the credibility will build off the last job, et cetera, for the entire space.
I agree with a lot of what Colin said. It's a very new, what's the word I'm looking for? Not only a conception, but a complete industry changer. It's very multifaceted and can have many uses. And yeah, we've had a lot of cool projects, especially because we can scale down to 5 watts, and all the way as big as a client needs. Right now, currently, we have a project in Finland that is heating the whole city of about 13,000 people. And for example, it really just shows the potential for heating through mining.
Yeah, the district heating is interesting to me because it seems the most well-suited right now for the way the machines are currently designed. Just modular and scalable. They're managed in a traditional facility that very much looks like a normal Bitcoin mining operation, but then they're selling the heat, right? And so you don't have to kind of crack that egg of making this a consumer-friendly product that has to sit in their living room or in their utility closet. It can just be centralized, managed. You have operators. You're selling that heat and sending it to a district setting, college campus, district heating in cities like that. Is that probably your biggest market with HeatCore? I'm curious.
One of them for sure. We're slowly getting more and more clients for that district heating. But with the scalability of our systems, it's really, we have a broad client base, very broad, especially considering there is, so we're able to mine through solar, through hydro dams, through wind power. There's just, we're getting more and more very broad client base through that.
I just want to talk a little bit about district energy as well, just how that the client profile is. I mean, essentially, they're attractive because they're large. They're attractive because they have demand all seasons. So you're sort of targeting a base load generally because you want to get full use out of your mining heat. You don't want to curtail if you don't have to. But the challenge with DE is they are generally either municipal or arm's length from that. So like there are obviously private corps, but they are very conservative corps. So, you know, presently we're having more success with resorts, you know, sort of smaller deployments where there's a private owner that doesn't have to, you maybe necessarily, decide something with a board or like, work closely with the government on something like this. So DE is ultimately a great landing spot, but there's structural challenges to fitting our industries together that need to be overcome in time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The YMCA comment had me thinking of that meme where it's you knock over a domino and it's like Bitcoin mining for heat, and then at the end it's YMCA being the yeah.
The biggest Bitcoin miner
For real.
in the United States.
But yeah, so like obviously we see the potential for that market. A lot of people here do that as well. But what do you think the biggest issues are for convincing no coiner companies that on the surface should have absolutely zero to do with Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining? What are some obstacles, whether it be, just the newness of Bitcoin or hardware, form function, like we've mentioned, but what do you think is in the way of getting them to make the jump? And then how do you think we could fix that?
I'd like to hear you guys talk about this because I've seen, zero emissions heat being the marketing, or even digital boiler, as you've coined it, Colin. And have you seen success in that? I'm super curious about, communicating these products, these heating systems in that way. Is it successful? You obviously can't say like hash price to your consumer. You can't talk about things like that. And so
You really can't.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, you are hitting the nail on the head. I think digital boiler made it's palatable. It makes sense to the end user and the customer. It's not. There's nothing wrong with this. Like, we'll get there. But the reality is, you're dealing with sophisticated people in the normie world, and they start peeling it back, and there's so much to learn. And then so suddenly, like, you're walking the dog with them, but if you want to get them actually up to speed, you're talking years. And it's like, at some point, you have to either trust that I know what we're talking about and it's going to work, or you just have to take a risk. Because fully getting them, like, orange pilled on this is essentially what kind of confidence they need to do this. There's a second part to your question, I feel like.
Yeah. What are the obstacles and how do we get around them?
And that comes in two forms too. I can only say so much about this, but the business model you decide to take on when approaching them, you can't get financing for this very easy either. If it was, let's say, like a electric boiler system, they could get a lease and a loan to like pay those down. It's like very challenging in our space to do that. I think, again, a couple more jobs. Like right now, we kind of can get access to mezzanine debt for ourselves if we're financing that. It's ugly, but because it works, it's okay. But we'd love to be able to sort of have more access to capital, because these are just infrastructure projects, but they have to be treated differently because the banking system is still very scared of them.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Colin said. I love the orange pilled reference. That was super funny. I think it's kind of just taboo still. A large number of people still don't understand Bitcoin mining in general. And like you said, it's very hard to get people on board and get loans and all that stuff. And especially just because traditional Bitcoin mining is just so electricity based. And when people think about that, they think of these big data centers full of machines, megawatts and megawatts. And they don't understand a lot of them that you can really scale it down and even use means of electricity other than, a substation. Now there's all these products that can use solar and wind, and there's just a lot more use case for it now. But that hasn't been exposed to the general public and or the people that could invest into mining.
I just want to just how challenging these industries are to connect. I just want to relay, I haven't announced this anywhere yet, so I'm gonna be telling you guys first. We're gonna have a press release come out soon. But we have a digital boiler going into a resort on Vancouver Island called Pacific Sands Resort in Tofino. It's a very famous place. Trudeau likes to hang out there. But the guy who is purchasing the digital boiler, he's a very well-heeled guy. He understands Bitcoin. He owns the resort. He is on our board, in fact, and he is wanting me to downplay the Bitcoin aspect of this digital boiler. He's like, heat from compute, yada, 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 like potential for AI. Like, this is how neurotic people are about putting Bitcoin forward when their business isn't really Bitcoin. And I will do that for him. When you read the press release, you'll be mildly disappointed about what it says in there. But it's going to be Bitcoin miners in there, and that's really all it's built for. But yeah, we're so close yet so far. I feel like there's that credibility. He's in the real estate business. Like how I look to my friends. He only if it works is he ready to take credit for. You know what I mean? Only if it just blows up, right?
There's still this FUD around Bitcoin in general, and so that's very interesting to hear because, yeah, we saw the chart, like so much heat is used. I'm sure a large percent of that is already electric heat, which is the low-hanging fruit. It's the same cost. I ran that number. I was curious. If 1% of comfort heat, which I assume 1% is electric, if 1% of comfort heat was converted to hash rate at the current average efficiency, it would bring us over 3 zettahash. So it's huge. Yeah. The market's there. But as we're talking about now, you have to like orange pill people and convince them to be Bitcoin maximalists to install a heating system, which is insane.
Essentially, and then to have a guy who's already kind of there is self-conscious about even talking about it. It's not like they not like us,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to mention a place like Canada opening up to that. Like, what are some places around the world that you think are a good fit for these type of operations, whether it's because of their climate or even their political stances, where there are some countries that very openly accept Bitcoin and encourage it, some on the other side of the coin. Are there any locations, countries, regions that you think will thrive and lead the way in this?
There's a few. I'm going to say a few surprises I've had. District Energy is actually quite large in Texas. I was very surprised. I didn't think the climate graph made a lot of sense for that, but it is. And I mean, they tend to build things really big. So they have these massive pools, these lagoons, etc. And they are dumping tremendous amounts of heat in these things. And they are, I would say, culturally very enterprising and very open in this type of thing. But I've had some very interesting talks with potential customers and customers recently. I mean, there was a group from the south of France for these greenhouses, and they had like really bad energy prices, but we ran the model and we're like, you're netting out at zero, basically. So like, don't expect to ROI on this, but your current heating system is a pit of money you're going to be losing forever. This one will mitigate that cost based on what we look at. Also, that's another thing I'm like almost too honest at times, because Bitcoin mining is hot for basically 1 year. It's okay for 2, and it's terrible for 1. And if you are pitching a product on a year, it's awesome. It's very easy to go, it's going to be like this forever. You might move some more units, but we're always kind of going like, this is what that 4-year looks like. So I would consider actually right now kind of an average period. We haven't had that separation between difficulty and price yet. And show them this is what to expect on sort of a monthly basis or an annual basis, but it will not look like this, but this is how it will shake out.
I think there's a lot of places that are opening up to it more and more as Bitcoin's more widely accepted. I think the best places for it that are just countries that are very open-minded and places that are really open-minded, that don't have a lot of safeguards or rules against not doing it and such. There's a lot of places in Europe that are really open-minded about it. I know there's projects we have in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. they're getting a lot more into the Bitcoin mining sphere.
The places like your Saudi Arabia, UAE, our technology can kind of be turned on its head in some regards there, because if you're providing heat with this, presumably your technology is fairly thermally resistant, and you won't need like cooling to run, any day in Dubai. I was looking at this with a group out there, and I'm like, if you don't have use for the heat, you can actually run this without cooling, and just not you need an air cooler, but you don't need like refrigeration. So you're kind of getting that opportunity. But then there's been a lot of discussion about adsorber cooling as well. Although this is like less efficient, you can basically use your heat, adding it to like part of the side of the refrigeration system, and you are increasing their efficiency by some margin. Is it as efficient as giving 100% of your heat to a system that needs it? No, but it is a use. I was having a conversation with a group attached to Barclays, and they were saying that I'm way out of my depth talking about this, but they're saying at certain temperatures, heat injection is required for direct carbon capture, and they have like projects that the range we were talking about could work for, which I think would be a great story.
Yeah, there's so many cool applications that you can apply it to. There's some places where Bitcoin mining is banned. And then some people don't know this, but I was talking to Christian who made the Riot system. It's like a little immersion home boiler, essentially. And he said in Switzerland, where he's at, using resistive heat is illegal. So they skirt around it by using a computer that does logic. So it's funny, there's all these nuances. It's the same thing, back to my point about dumb heater, smart heater. I think proof of work will really help as well. When you install this system and the client's super pumped and happy, and then he owns 3 other businesses, or I get a house up in the mountains that gets off of propane and they save 80% of their heating bill, and they tell their neighbor, it'll kind of spread like wildfire, I hope. We just have to crack that first egg, and I think that's a lot of the challenge right now, is getting the first person, that first proof of concept, that showcase site where people can actually reap the benefits and the rewards, and then hopefully it spreads like wildfire from there.
Yeah, I think getting over that hump is the biggest driver right now, especially in places like you said where it's very unconventional heating methods, propane, wood chipping. The town in Finland that we are powering right now, heating right now, literally used to originally burn coal, and now they were burning wood chippers. They had wood chippers to heat, and it's just so awesome to give them an alternative for that that is carbon friendly and just way more efficient.
You know how like when you really started to understand Bitcoin, how suddenly you could just peer back through that lens and you sort of understood economics better, and you understood like monetary theory, and you knew what made sense and knew what didn't make sense. It's like you have to understand like this massive system to understand Bitcoin. It's like where it interfaces with. And heating is the same. You have to understand their entire industry. And then like, a guy will be like, okay, well, I have a 400 suite building. You're gonna put this thing in there. I'm gonna take some of it. You're gonna have a services contract. What if I sell the building? What does that do to the value? And I'm like, that is a great question. Because in the future, the answer is obvious. You have a revenue center in your building, and you can add that to the value of your building. At present, though, you might be able to sell your building and retain ownership of the boiler and just get a heat, and then he's basically getting Bitcoin without paying for it. Eventually, there'll be a problem with that pretty quick, but there's always this gray area in the margins where, like, oh, we got this electric heater and it works fine. What do you mean? No, it's making a bunch of Bitcoin. Oh, okay. And so it just adds these ripples, this nuance to so many industries, and then you get these high-level experts in their space asking you questions, and then you have to be able to extrapolate what that even means, right?
And the heating industry hasn't changed for like 100 years.
No. Definitely not.
That's a really good point about how many industries it impacts and how many different industries are getting more and more into it with gas companies, solar flares, and it's slowly being accepted by so many industries. I think it just needs to get over that hump and have some big, credible companies take it in.
Yeah, I mean, so off that, what do you guys think some companies are, or you don't have to name them, or what type of industry they're in? Maybe they're an appliance manufacturer. They can see the idea of building a super cheap heater that you have to connect to Wi-Fi, and then they get the Bitcoin on their end. There's a lot of ideas for this. I'm curious what you've all seen and what you think could be one of the emerging companies in this industry.
I think rental properties are like an insanely good use case for the owner, because he says how much he charges for his heating and the utilities in the building, and he retains the asset, and he's mining Bitcoin. And it's someone like that will be like the Michael Saylor of Bitcoin mining eventually, where it's just like this is all. The conversations I've had is like they can basically, because they own the asset, they can write off the energy use as a loss forever, hang on to the Bitcoin, write that off against their earnings. It's like the way they can structure it is like so good it sounds criminal, to be honest. It's like, so the use case for rental properties is exceedingly strong in my opinion.
So we need a furnace and a boiler
Yeah.
for residential applications.
Well, I mean, sure. But if you have some, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit slanted for, if you're talking for what they're talking about, you're talking about heating many, many suites. So you need some sort of centralized heating system.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like precisely what I was referring to.
Multi-tenant,
Sorry
yeah.
if I wasn't clear on that. Yeah, it's sort of if you have a condo or an apartment suite of that size, yeah.
That's what I was just going to touch on, apartments. I think that's the best use case for them. Duplexes and renting out homes in itself still has a very good use case, but the apartments would be criminal, as he said.
Turn the Hilton into one of the largest Bitcoin mining companies.
Easily.
Exactly. Like a hotel would be amazing if a Holiday or a Hilton really implemented that into all of their properties, or even, a percentage. It would be very, very lucrative.
But these big companies that own multiple properties, multiple hotels, they're all around the world. These are the ones that are the hardest to sell on what they perceive as a risky change in their heating system. We're here saying this is the lowest risk thing you could be doing. It's just you're paying for dumb heat or smart heat. And this one adds revenue to your balance sheet. But to them, they have all these preconceived notions. Yeah.
If it were only as easy as just saying, "Hey, it's smart heat or dumb heat," it's like they're like, "What the hell does that mean? Show me the financials."
Dude, people have fridges with touchscreens on them.
And then when the scariest thing is like when you actually have a decent market model, it looks completely insane, because you're basically like the market fluctuations. You can, if you believe in the 4-year cycle, which I think is pretty established at this point. I think it'll break soon, but I mean, you're looking at logarithmic growth, difficulty following it, and it's like the answer is this margin that floats around, and it is an ecosystem. Like if the margin gets too big, more entrants come in. That's fairly logical. But the back end of it, it's like, well, you're saying, by 2025 December, Bitcoin's going to be $800,000 for this to work. I'm like, well, I'm not saying that's what it has to be. But I'm saying if it's lower, you're going to have less entrants in there, and it's going to look a little different. But that's what we've kind of seen thus far. And all models are going to be wrong, but it's just if you plan for a static environment, which they beg for, you're going to be absolutely wrong, without question.
So going off the idea of 4-year cycles. I'm not an expert on what the price will be, but I know that the growth has gotten less and less over the various 4-year cycles. And I know that a lot of these big...
Do you believe that?
Doesn't matter what I believe, but I know that a lot of big Bitcoin miners have 10, 15-year power purchasing agreements. In 2032, the block subsidy will fall to under 1 Bitcoin. It'll be 0.7825. How do you think these big miners will prepare for this?
By selling heat.
Who are they going to sell it to?
Anyone. You know, that's what I think is interesting about the mega miner models right now. They tend to be in the middle of nowhere. The district heating sites are great because they have a large heat demand nearby. But when you're in the middle of nowhere and you're in a hot climate or something, there's nowhere to send that heat. How are you possibly going to compete against the guy that has the same 10 megawatt site in a whole city that needs hot water that they're selling it to? And it doesn't matter what the hash price is. They're selling the heat always. It's worth the same. They have that contract. It's another revenue stream added to their P&L. And so, you know, Bitcoin mining is the most ruthless competitive game there is. We're hunting for the cheapest energy, reducing the most waste. And if I'm valuing something that you're throwing away, then I win.
I mean, I don't agree. I do agree with the premise. I don't agree with the players. I think it's kind of like what's Zeller's going to do when Amazon happens? Well, they're going to go online. It's like, no, they're going to go to business. Their whole DNA is about scale. Like when you're talking about 400 kilowatt, 1 megawatt, this kind of thing isn't even on their radar. Most of them are trending towards being coin managers more than anything else. They talk about how much Bitcoin they have on hand. They want to I talk to these people. They want to transition either into, like, some of them think AI because right now, you know, AI is in the sun. AI hasn't seen a bear market yet. No one knows what that looks like. So of course it's way more profitable. Like when the market's saturated with these GPUs, like it's going to be like anything else we've seen before. We just kind of have an idea about how to weather that. But I don't see an appetite for it for a lot of these companies, and I think they want to get as many coins as they can, and they want to dip out of regular mining. Now, when you talk about block subsidy, and these things coincide. You know, when we start talking about halvings and block subsidies, I really feel that you can kind of see that there's massive contraction to the industry unless we start to see transaction fees start going up. And I kind of predict by the next halving, transaction fees will be the dominant contributor to revenue from mining. And will from that point forward. And from that point forward, the halvings will cease to be meaningful because the dedicated sellers will not have an amount that's shrinking according to block subsidy. So I think part and parcel of that is sort of a market equilibrium that the coin reaches, and that's a big number. You know, I hesitate to say what the number will be, but I think that's kind of like countdown to like fully mainstream for Bitcoin. And that, you know, when like, again, you know, close your eyes and throw a dart at the board. But I generally model for about 3 Bitcoin per block in perpetuity after, you know, 2028, basically. And I think that makes sense if we're projecting a price of this much, there's going to be this much traffic on L1, that at least makes sense. But then there's whole other industries that we haven't even seen yet coming on. Like if we have spikes suddenly in fees, do we have like non-profitable miners that are extremely cheap that people have like waiting in containers to flick on and like take advantage of these point loads in time? The other side of the coin is, you know, basically spinning reserve, where you have, you know, massive dips in price and you need resistive in energy and you have resistive load and you just throw those online. So I think we'll see a lot more dynamic mining. That'll be a whole other business as well. I'm going a lot of directions here.
But wouldn't, like, under that scenario, when the guys that aren't selling the heat feel the pain, the ones that are selling the heat, they'd kind of be your underground support that are just supporting the hash rate as kind of that base layer, because they're always monetizing that physical conversion of electricity into heat.
Totally. Yeah. I'm kind of describing like two groups that will succeed on a go forward basis, I think. And the third would be like highly vertically integrated companies where they are an energy utility essentially, and they're supplying their own resistive load, which is hard to get. You know,
or it's a national security interest and it's state subsidized and they don't care what they mine.
Yeah, there's so many different angles that can go. You're right. I mean, if you can confirm your blocks and ensure that they go through, that's a big deal.
All right, I have one more question before we get into a couple of the ones asked here. This one I'm stealing from Andrew Hans. He asks it at every Philadelphia Bitcoin meetup that he has a fireside chat with. Go Birds. But so he says, in the year 2040, 99 point, I think either 8 or 99.9% of the supply will have been issued. A lot of people here probably have young kids. How will they view Bitcoin? How will they view Bitcoin mining? How will they view the heating industry? Because they will have grown up in a world where this already exists and it's not necessarily new to them.
I'll say, Dad, why didn't you buy more? It like the path we're going to is we are at the bleeding edge here. We're at the bleeding edge of the bleeding edge. Things just get more boring over time. I hate to throw the industry under the bus, but like you see some of the Twitter takes from orange-filled people. The IQ is regressing to the mean. And that's normal. That's normal. It's getting more and more popular. And so, they'll just think of it as probably like money. And like, they won't know anything about it. It's like, I even ask me, it's like, how does your debit card work? It's like, it just works, right? Like it'll be something in the background. Like we are helping drive forward a technology that is in some respects inevitable, but it does need some help. But it becomes uncontroversial and just useful and ubiquitous over time.
I agree with that a lot. I think by 2040 it will be, quote marks, boring especially to all the children. Who knows what's going to come after Bitcoin and what's going to maybe take that center stage. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next 15 years with it. It really is, especially once 99.8, 99.9% are mined.
I think it'll be funny. I think that in 15 years, the global neutral monetary system will have settlement and issuance performed by heating systems. And our kids are going to think we're weirdos for even attending a BitDevs ever.
Yeah, there's no USD devs, you know what I mean? It's just like, you're part of the, you're part of the background, it's like you brought this thing, you helped bring this thing forward. It's like, it's so obvious. Why didn't it just happen,
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll get into a couple of the questions here. The first
It's
one
my
is...
birthday, by the way. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
It's good to be here with you guys. Where else would I rather be?
So the first question is, Colin mentioned YMCA potentially having 24 exahash instantly. Can you talk about what that looks like from a manufacturing perspective to build heat reuse machines at that scale?
Who asked this?
It was
Is this one of my investors? You need to have good fabrication partners, and what we're doing, it's highly mechanical. We basically handle the integration of the systems into the mechanical system at large. We're kicking tires on the geopolitics of North America have gotten a little shaken up lately, so we play ball. We're kicking tires on some manufacturing outside of Houston, Texas. But we basically need to roll out that many. It's just like you become like a Tesla or something. Like you're building something at scale, and that's I would say a good problem to have, but it's a significant problem to have, but it's a manufacturing problem and not a Bitcoin problem. It's not specific to what we do. I would say that Mint Green is going to start developing its own boards this year. That's going to be a unique challenge. We need to find a partner who is willing to provide the cores, because we're not going to get into that. That's a bit much, looking at you. But if the boards are specifically designed to do some heat rejection and manage those temperatures at a high level, which they're not, they just happen to, you could just open up more and more applications continuously.
All right, and this question is from Tristan. He says he has a PC building background, what obstacles are there to making your own device using ASIC chips in order to satisfy a much more accessible form factor for heat reuse? Current miners treat heat as an afterthought rather than the focal point.
I was just going to say that, it's interesting that if the ASIC chip is the heating element, converting electricity into heat, and that's a multi-million-dollar undertaking to design a super efficient circuit board. You got to spin up silicon fabs and have access to all this stuff. It's not something that a heating system company can go do. But there's no need for the chip manufacturers to design the rest of the system. This is how I articulated in my book. It's like if you go buy an Intel processor from Micro Center or an AMD, and you can get an NVIDIA graphics card and a different cooling block and then a power supply from another manufacturer, you can piece together the system you want for a specific use case. Maybe it's a server, maybe it's a home desktop, maybe it's a heater. And so I think just having kind of the fundamental building blocks and access to those would allow a company like you to go and really fine-tune these things for certain applications, which then makes the selling so much easier when you already have to orange pill these people. I mean, if you can make it as plug and play as possible, it gets the temperatures they want, it looks like they expect it to look, it's got the right fittings, everything like that would just really accelerate adoption, I believe. Instead of having to retrofit these industrial machines that are clearly designed with a different intent right now.
I think that's exactly correct. And it was also very, I think, intuitive of you and wise of you to understand that the form factor is key. Because if it looks too weird, it scares them, right? So, it's not a mistake that Mint Green's product is round and is called a digital boiler. It's because that's what they're used to seeing. And so it gives them comfort. And this has been brought up to me by them. Oh yeah, you certainly have the most productized version. It's like, well, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but it certainly meets your expectations aesthetically. And so engineers always just want to make a box, because it's easiest, but no.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to really customize the systems and make it aesthetically pleasing to the client, to the customer, has a lot of potential, because nowadays a lot of people are aesthetically driven and want things to look their way. I think the market for that is very, very big, because like you said, everyone wants to make a box, but it'd be very cool if clients could customize their own systems.
But even the box right now is like a step in the right direction. If you guys have checked out the backyard, it's very much not a box. There's tubes everywhere laying in the snow and pumps and heat exchangers on the ground. And so some people's basements look like that right now that are heating with hash rate. And so there's definitely some way
awesome.
to make this into beautiful form factors for sure.
I'm the one that asked that question. I wanted to add a little bit on top of it. Like, is there an available line of communication to talk to these ASIC manufacturers like they were AMD or NVIDIA and say, hey, I just want the chips. Okay, I can design power delivery, I can design a circuit board, and then you can just stamp 4 S19s on a water bottle and have it for you.
They're in the building this week.
So, to my knowledge, AMD, they obviously have the capacity, but they don't produce those specific type of ASIC cores.
No. I'm just saying, like the company in NVIDIA, they make their cores, and after they slice them, they produce their own hardware, but then they also have other hardware manufacturers.
Yeah, like MSI can make a GPU with the silicon, and it's in a different shape, yeah.
For someone to just get the chips or the boards and to design it in a form factor.
In our industry, the manufacturers are highly protective of the parts of the system.
So like Antminer doesn't sell chips, they just sell their box.
Antminer generally does not sell chips. You would have to have a very, very large special case for them to consider that. And neither do really any other suppliers. The Jack Dorsey's group was talking about doing some Intel-based chips.
Proto.
Yes.
They're here.
But I don't
Be on
think that
panel
actually
tomorrow.
happened. And it's very competitive, right? Like these cores get better by such a wide margin that it's tough to get into the space too, right? So I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's challenging. We're definitely, like, we're talking about creating our own boards. We need to get cords. This is a challenge we're facing right now.
And hopefully just showing how big the target market is for heat reuse, I think can help sway the minds of some of these manufacturers, because, you know, when they're selling 10,000 machines to Riot, they don't care when I ask if I can have something for my space heater. They're like, what? But if we show that the heating market is 250 times larger and the target market exists, I think maybe we'll start to sway their interest.